very interested to understand the viewpoint of my new feminist friends on YouTube towards my non-feminist viewpoint as filtered through my response to the latest offering from Anita Sarkeesian, Jonathan McIntosh, and Feminist Frequency. 5 ways men can help end sexism. I likely came to your attention through my videos against the functionally retarded racist, sexist viewpoints of regressive dregs like Sargon of Akkad, Thunderfoot, Teal Deer, and Mundane Matt. They all deserve jail time for stupid, but this doesn't mean I necessarily believe their polar opposite view, I assume upheld by Feminist Frequency, to be the best solution to the problems of sexism in Western society. I accept and agree with the stated definition of feminism as a socio-political movement with the central goal of ending sexism and dismantling gender-based oppression. First of all, I recognize it's not my choice to disagree with this definition at all. It's truly juvenile when so-called intellectuals focus on redefining jargon of Akkad rather than moving forward towards solutions. However, I felt it necessary to state my agreement with this definition outright to showcase that we are all working towards the same goal. I also fully agree with the distinction that McIntosh points to, that feminism is looking to fundamentally change the values of the Western system rather than simply seek equal access within the current status quo. Honestly, this is a distinction that many so-called black activists might benefit from studying. However, as McIntosh expounds upon the results of this systematic change, I've become less inclined to accept certain aspects of it. Specifically, results arising from the assertion that it is an overproduction of masculinity that causes a need for feminism. Quite the contrary, masculinity is outsourced more than ever in Western society. The average male, at least in the U.S., is a 5'9", medically overweight, socially reclusive white guy with no survival skills. This is the World Health Organization talking, not me, and this is the average, not the exception. Neck-beard culture is taking over, at least in white male society, which currently comprises the majority of men in Western society. What's worse is that the marketers have seized upon this audience, upholding and promoting it, as evidenced by the Call of Duty Black Ops 3 trailer in the side window beside McIntosh here. McIntosh uses the Black Ops ad as an example of how men are praised for aggressive, violent behavior rather than for being vulnerable and compromising. As an aside, no heterosexual man should ever be vulnerable by choice. That shit is disgusting. What McIntosh does not realize is the Call of Duty ad is clearly showcasing a man who is obviously not ready for aggression or violence, outsourcing that aggression to an aspirational character in the video game. What is actually being promoted is laziness, sloth, and entitlement, the exact opposite of masculinity. Because to play the game, you must forego the actual expression of masculine energy in real life. You're this goofy turd by day, but holding up in your house reclusively with Call of Duty, and you have a chance to become John Rambo suddenly. Keep in mind that it is exactly this entitled neckbeard culture responsible for all of the online harassment of Feminist Frequency, not the guys with a masculine culture about them. I absolutely agree with McIntosh that, quote,
same values are also reflected in our larger political and military institutions.
However, what is reflected is this same outsourced aggression from men who understand nothing of it, not aggression itself. Men who really know aggression understand that it is not to be used haphazardly, while men disassociated from it will cause more of it because it does not directly affect them. Let's do this visually. In real life, this guy is really this guy who outsources his aggression to this guy who goes overseas killing and turns this guy into this guy who immigrates back and does this shit that turns this guy into this guy that causes this shit and this shit. All of these aggressions begin with a man who knows nothing of aggression and spills down into men without the masculine energy to break the chain and say, this ends here, or even to direct their aggression at the appropriate source. If true masculinity were taught instead of outsourced, the soldier that the politician sends to kill overseas would say, no, not because he's less of a man, but because he's more of one. A definition that is at the core of a solution to the status quo of war and sexism against women. Masculine energy is the energy that breaks rules. Women can certainly employ this energy, but men are much more physically prepared for the physical slings and arrows that come from such an action. As such, it is men's responsibility to increase masculinity in men, not decrease it, for the good of feminism. It takes a focused masculine aggression to face down a government intent on bombing civilians in Syria instead of outsourcing that aggression to man-spreaders on the New York subway. Today, man-spreaders get arrested and the military does whatever it wants. These are the policies of people who do not understand masculinity. I don't oppose feminist frequency based upon its status as the iconoclast of feminist ideology. I oppose it because its philosophy may be taking away the rebellious, rule-breaking masculinity we need to fix our problems. Are they really my problems? I'm not a white male, but our problems. Based upon that analysis, I now offer 5 alternative solutions on how men can help eliminate sexism by rediscovering their masculinity rather than diminishing it. Number 1, listen to women. McIntosh implicitly defines actively paying attention to women's voices as a strictly literal undertaking. However, a man's job is to find solutions. There is nothing more ridiculous than a man trying to talk to a woman like he's her sister or girlfriend. Take in fully what a woman has to say, yes. However, the final thought in your head should be, what can I do? Now, you might think I'm moving into simp territory when I say this. Quite the contrary, as I'm also a believer in offering this service only to women that you actually care about. If you don't care, you won't listen, and this helps no one. At the same time, realize that as a man, attraction makes your listening ears work better. Don't apologize for this. Choose discerningly who you listen to. Engage them fully, and most importantly, fix stuff so that you never have to have the same conversation twice. Most importantly, if you find yourself listening to a woman who doesn't care about you, save both of you guys some time. Don't argue the point or try to prove yourself. Walk away and engage women who do. Number 2, educate yourself. As McIntosh states, women do not owe men an explanation of feminism. However, his, quote, committing to continuous lifelong learning, end quote, can be less than enticing for a guy with more interest in football than bell hooks. The education that a man undertakes should be a more active one, as in there's less of a need to sit in a feminist book club if you simply listen when a woman you cares about tells you something is problematic. I actually don't recommend that the average guy read feminist literature. In the weakened masculine state that most Western men are in, reading somebody powerful like bell hooks can become disempowering and be easily misinterpreted by a man, creating more resentment and ideological polarism in him rather than a spirit of compromise. What's more important is to have an outlet for aggression so that you do not feel the need to impress a false masculine bravado over the women in your life. Go lift some weights, punch a heavy bag, learn discipline and honor through a martial art. Learn masculinity first. Number 3, challenge other men. I actually agree with McIntosh's hypothetical white knight standing up against sexist jokes in theory. However, there is no need to be the wet rag at the party listening out for the sexist boogeyman behind every attempt at humor. As a matter of fact, there are many situations in which your interpretation of sexism might be completely out of sync with the women at McIntosh's hypothetical party. The bigger picture is that this type of humor that McIntosh refers to is usually employed by men devoid of and with no chance at female companionship for the evening. So the question is, why are you hanging around MGTOW cockfest stag parties in the first place? Challenging other men when necessary is certainly appropriate, but a better challenge is to improve your social circle to the point where destructive humor isn't even considered because there's too many goddamn hotties in the room. Number 4, don't get defensive. I don't enjoy advice that predicates its active clause on a negative. Do not get defensive does not tell you what to do, and since masculine energy is about action, this is useless. Rather than not getting defensive, a phrase that leaves men at the complete mercy of
the ways that women may choose to speak about sexism.
I've found a better tactic is to actively seek out women who are made happier by your presence and immediately disengage women who are not. A contentious offense-defense situation is much less likely to happen in a relationship of mutual respect where information flows freely from person to person with a minimum of extra emotional content. You also have a right to aggressively defend your personal space against an aggressor, male or female, but keep in mind that one of the most aggressive actions you can take is to actively disengage negative energy and walk away. If there's nothing in danger except your ego, walking away is likely the best course of action. Number 5, learn from mistakes. When put in the context of men providing support to feminism, learning from mistakes assumes there is a correct way. I'm quite sure that every single woman you run into will have a different definition of what constitutes a mistake. And if you walk around trying to appease everyone, you will quickly burn out, become frustrated, and what's more, you will accomplish very little. Your first mistake in any endeavor is spreading yourself too thin. McIntosh said it himself. Feminism is a movement that women must lead. If you support feminism, 95% of the time, the best thing to do as a man is simply to get out of the way. Let's see what discussion we can drudge up with this.